بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن شاء الله النهاردة هناخد المحاضرة التانية في كورس Dermatologicals and Cosmetics. السلايد دي كنا خدناها في المحاضرة اللي فاتت، نرجع نعرضها تاني ونفتكر ايه هي الكوزماتيك كريمز اللي احنا مطالبين بيها. أول حاجة كان عندنا moisturizing, vitalizing, smoothing, anti-aging, UV protection and baby protection. Moisturizing creams reduce water evaporation and supply the skin with moisture to give a soft and supple appearance. Vitalizing creams stimulate the blood supply to the cells and hence increase cell renewal. Smoothing creams smoothes the skin with lipid agents and gives it an appearance of young and healthy skin. Anti-aging reduces small wrinkles and tightens the skin to look like the youth skin. UV protection reduces harmful effects of sun ray, and baby creams or baby protection creams mainly concerned with diaper care and protection of diaper area. أول type بدأنا فيه last time is moisturizing cream. What are the characteristics of the dry skin? Why we use moisturizing creams? So we need to know how to differentiate between dry skin and soft skin and when we need to use moisturizing creams. Dry skin is a skin with low moisture content, so it appears dry, fissured, cracked, and rough. And in severe cases, sometimes scales appears on the surface due to the accumulation of the keratinous cells. برضو we can see fine lines which gives the skin a bad look, which gives the skin an aged appearance. A dry skin is also more prone to skin infections like bacterial and fungal colonization on the dry skin. In severe cases of dry skin or extremely dry skin is a disease or a dermatological disease named as cirrhosis. During dry skin or during having a dry skin, the superficial layers of the cutaneous layers do not peel. يعني layers دي do not peel off. Instead, they accumulate and the cutaneous cells accumulate, forming scales, forming cracks on the superficial layer of the skin, giving the skin its dry appearance, its rough appearance. So, by finding all these symptoms, we can recognize the dry skin. في السلايد دهيت احنا قدامنا دلوقتي images كتيرة بتوضح السيروزس. This is a dermatological disease named cirrhosis. As you can find in the pictures, you will find that the skin is rough. You can find that there are some scales on the skin due to the accumulation of the keratinous cells. The skin looks very dry, very rough, fissured. It's not an healthy skin. This case, to be treated, we need to use moisturizing creams. We need to know what are the natural factors required to prevent the skin dryness. In our body or in our skin, we have natural factors. We have natural defense mechanisms that prevents our skin from dryness. The first factor is the presence of a lipid layer on the surface of the skin. This lipid layer can be also called an oily layer on the surface of the skin. If the lipid layer diminishes or decreases, or its amount decreases, this will affect the percentage of water present in the keratinous layer as we mentioned in the previous lecture. So, the main function of the lipid film or the oily layer on the skin is to decrease the water evaporation or the normal moisture content present in the keratinous layer. So, this layer acts as an occlusive layer to prevent any evaporation of the moisture content present in the keratinous layer. or to minimize the evaporation of water. طيب. What are the components of this layer? This layer is simply a combination of oily products on the skin surface, mainly composed of the sebum secreted from the sebaceous glands. In our skin, we have glands called sebaceous glands. These glands secretes a substance or secretes products called sebum. Sebum goes up to the surface of the skin and combines with other components, forming this oily occlusive layer which protects our skin from losing or from evaporating the normal moisture content present in our keratinous layer in the skin. The second natural factor is a natural moisturizing factor. The natural moisturizing factor is a group of compounds that serve to retain the moisture content of the keratinous layer. This group of compounds are composed of natural moisturizing factors like urea, lactic acid, glycolic acid, phospholipids, malic acid, pyruvic acid, salts of pyrrolidone, carboxylic acids. Group of compounds, a composition of group of compounds that preserves the moisture level inside the keratinous layer. Cosmeticians, by knowing the composition of natural moisturizing factor, they began to use these compounds in the composition of moisturizing creams to mimic or to simulate the natural components present in the skin. We need to know the answer of this important question. Do repeated washing or repeated placing of a damp cloth on the skin preserves the skin moisture? If we repeated washing our hands or repeated using water or keeping our skin wet with water most of the time, is it useful to keep our skin moist, to keep our skin soft and not dry? Let's know the answer. When we allow the water that we have added, we can add water by washing or by placing a wet cloth on the skin. If we allowed this water added by ourselves to evaporate, a different situation occurs. Different completely from the normal process that happens during the evaporation of the moisture content present in the keratinous layer. What happens? Here, the added water evaporates and takes with it the water previously present in the outer layers of the skin or in the keratinous layers of the skin. So the added water doesn't evaporate alone, but instead, or on the other hand, it takes the other water or the normal moisture content present in the skin. So the quantity of the water being evaporated is greater than what was applied. So adding water doesn't help. Instead, and on the other hand, it stimulates the evaporation of the normal moisture content present in the skin. Subsequently and finally, we will find that the skin's moisture content is less than what was at the beginning of the washing process. So, keeping our skin wet by using external sources of water is not a solution to keep our skin moist and soft. Instead, it enhances the evaporation of a natural moisture content present in our skin. Therefore, we can conclude that frequent washing of the skin with water does have a drying effect instead of moistening our skin and giving it a glowing and a soft, supple appearance. Hence, water is not useful for retaining sufficient skin moisture. In order to preserve skin moisture, we do have only one solution, which is applying moisturizers. So using moisturizer keeps our skin soft and moist. Using excessive water or applying excessive water on the skin, on the other hand, it makes our skin dry and it doesn't moist our skin. As we can see in the picture in front of us, before and after using moisturizers, as we can see, the skin looks different in the picture on the right hand. It looks moist, it looks healthy, supple and glowing compared to the other picture. So we are going to study moisturizers and what are the usefulness of moisturizers. What are the beneficial effects of using moisturizers? Moisturizers have two beneficial effects. The first one is providing protection, and the second one is improving the skin's appearance, making the skin look glowing. Providing protection. The thin oily layer on the skin surface can protect it from exposure to environmental factors. By applying moisturizer, you can prevent the loss of water from the keratinous layer. You can preserve the oily layer on the skin. So we are protecting our skin from losing water and from the decrease of the oily layer present on the surface of the skin. The second beneficial effect is improving the skin's appearance. When the skin is well moisturized, it appears temporary, smoother, and more refreshed. What's the meaning of temporary? That means that if you use moisturizers for once, it doesn't treat the case forever. No, you need to frequently use moisturizers to keep your skin smooth and refreshed and supple. So the action of moisturizers is temporary. It's not a permanent action, so we need to frequently apply moisturizers to keep our skin soft. Unfortunately, this temporary improvement was exploited by advertisers, claiming the anti-aging effect of moisturizers. Moisturizers do not have an anti-aging effect. On the other hand, it has a temporary refreshing effect on the skin. It's not an anti-aging skin, but unfortunately, many manufacturers or advertisers make use of this beneficial effects, claiming that moisturizers have anti-aging effect. Not everyone requires moisturizers, and individuals with oily skin usually have no need for them. People whose skin are oily, the oily layer present on their skins is thick, so those people do not need frequent use of moisturizers, but they can use them along with others with non-oily skin. They can use moisturizers in certain cases, like for example, exposure to environmental conditions like dry air or cold wind, which affects the humidity around our skin or around our body, making the evaporation of natural moisture content from the skin more feasible and easier. Also, older people, people or elderly people whose skin normally is usually dry, require using moisturizers more frequently because due to aging, the skin doesn't keep its moisture content as it used to do in young ages. How to preserve the moisture of the skin? By using humectants, emollients, and occlusives. Humectants أو water loving substances like water, hyaluronic acid, glycerine, propylene glycol, and several substances. Emollients like oils, jojoba oil, cetyl alcohol, cyclomethicone. Occlusives like heavy oils. يعني in occlusives, the substance is heavy, like lipids, like fats, heavy oils like مثلا lanolin, silicones, petrolatum, and mineral oil. هنتكلم عن humectants. What are humectants? Humectants are group of compounds that absorb water. They are water-loving components, or water-loving compounds. How does a humectant work? Some of the humectants can penetrate the keratinous layer, are entrapped inside the keratinous layer, and increase its water content by absorbing the water either from the external environment or the surrounding environment, or absorbs water from deep skin tissues. But others have large molecules. Their molecules or their molecular structure is very bulky and large, so they do not penetrate the keratinous layer. Instead, they remain on the skin surface and acts as a water-absorbing material to increase the water content on the surface, hence prevent water loss from the keratinous layer. But we can face a problem while using humectants. Humectants are largely affected by the surrounding environment, by the surrounding climate. How? In a relatively dry environment, if we have a dry, cold environment, which means that it's non-humid environment, the humidity is low, so humectants as water-loving substances or water-absorbing substances will search for another source of moisture. So they will not absorb water from the environment. Instead, they may actually absorb water from the skin, causing increased dryness for the skin. So humectants are highly efficient if we are in a humid environment. In the humid environment, humectants will act as magnets. They will draw and absorb water from the environment more than absorbing water from deep skin tissues. As we can see in the inserted picture, the humectants are present on the skin surface. We can see that humectants act as magnets. They can draw water from the surrounding environment, or they can withdraw it also from deep skin tissues, so to increase the moisture content on the surface of the skin. As we said, on the other hand, in a humid environment, they are largely efficient. Why? Because they will absorb moisture content largely or highly or efficiently from the surrounding environment, and will not absorb or draw moisture from deep skin tissues. In conclusion, we can conclude that the efficacy of humectants is not as great as occlusive products. Occlusive products they act as a barrier to prevent the transepidermal water loss. On the other hand, humectants absorb water from the atmosphere and from the deep skin tissues. So if we compare between occlusives and humectants, we can find that occlusives are more efficient in cold, dry environment compared to humectants. As we said, in cold, dry, non-humid environments, humectants will tend to draw water from the deep skin tissues, increasing the dryness effect of the skin. Instead, in cold, dry environment, we can use occlusives, which will act as a coat and a skin barrier to prevent the transepidermal water loss. Therefore, an efficient moisturizer suited to cold, dry weather should contain a combination of occlusives and humectants. Let's have a look on the inserted picture. Start from the left. Occlusive moisturizers coat the skin and act as a barrier to prevent the transepidermal water loss. What about humectant moisturizers? They absorb water from the atmosphere if we are in a humid environment, and also from the lower layers of the skin, which can be in large amounts if we are in non-humid environment. What are reparative moisturizers? Reparative moisturizers are a combination of both occlusive and humectant moisturizers to prepare the damaged skin. They combine the beneficial effects of occlusives and the beneficial effects of humectants. In daily usage, we prefer moisturizing cosmetics made from water-absorbing substances, and they are called non-oily moisturizers. But most moisturizers have number of components from each group. We can find the moisturizers containing an occlusive, emollient, along with humectants. In addition, a number of components have a combined effect, like lanolin and its derivatives. They are occlusives and they have water absorptive capacity as well, like humectants. Humectants. There are two classes or two subtypes of humectants. The first one is products composed of small molecules, and the second one are products composed of large or macromolecules. Small molecules like glycerine or glycerol, sorbitol, and propylene glycol. What about the macromolecules? Macromolecules are composed of larger molecules that are not able to penetrate the keratinous layer. Instead, they form a hygroscopic water-absorbing layer onto the surface of the skin, like glycosaminoglycans such as hyaluronic acid, elastin, collagen, and other proteins. So if we want to compare between the small molecules and the macromolecules, the small molecules have the ability to penetrate inside the keratinous layer and reside into the keratinous layer to absorb water and increase the moisture content of the keratinous layer. On the other hand, macromolecules, because of their big size, molecule size, they cannot penetrate the keratinous layer. Instead, they form a hygroscopic layer onto the surface of the skin. This hygroscopic layer acts as a water absorbing layer or acts as a magnet for water to absorb water either from the surrounding environment or from the deep skin tissues if we are in a dry, non-humid conditions. The third subtype of humectants are components of the natural moisturizing factor. As we took before, there are natural moisturizing factors with different components like lactic acid, phospholipids, malic acid. Several components act as natural moisturizing factors. Like sodium salts of pyrrolidone carboxylic acid, urea, lactic acid, phospholipids. Lactic acid belongs to the group of alpha hydroxy acids, and they have a great ability to increase the moisture content of the skin. Liposomes are delivery systems or are type of nano or microvesicles, found in different cosmetics. And they are made up of phospholipids, and as we took before, that phospholipids are components of the natural moisturizing factor. So using or preparing liposomes in cosmetic products have a certain ability to increase the skin's moisture content. Emollients. Emollients are substances used to increase the softness of the skin and to prevent the skin from being dry and rough. Emollients are substances that work by slipping through and filling in the tiny cracks or dead skin cells. Dead skin cells are called corneocytes, therefore improving the final appearance of the skin. Simply, when we apply emollients on the skin, they can slip through the cracks, they can slip between the dead cells, between the fissured skin, and filling all these cracks to give the skin a good appearance and soft glowing appearance. Emollients have some occlusivity. Emollients have some occlusivity and they have the ability to prevent the loss of the moisture content inside the skin. Finally, or in conclusion, في الآخر, they improve the appearance of the skin. Many different types of emollient esters and oils are available to formulators. So, humectants, emollients, all work to preserve the moisture content of the skin and to give the skin good appearance, soft appearance, and prevent the appearance of cracks and fissures and rough skin. Occlusives are substances that produce an oily layer on the skin, enriching the skin's natural lipid film which prevents water evaporation. يعني occlusives when applied on the skin surface, they produce an oily layer, a heavy oily layer on the skin, which acts as a barrier which prevents water being lost from the skin and acts out and enriches the lipid film of the skin, which can sustain the effect of occlusives by preventing water loss from the skin. The cutaneous layer becomes fully saturated with water. When you apply occlusives on the surface of the skin, the cutaneous layer can preserve, can keep its natural moisture level inside it and can reach the saturation with water. By this, you will find that the skin looks healthy, looks soft and supple. Formulators found that occlusives produce their maximum effect when applied directly after washing. Why? Because after washing, the skin is moist or the skin is wet. So when you apply occlusives on a wet skin, so you are entrapping or trapping a layer of water beneath them. So the cutaneous layer can make use of this trapped water and increase its moisture level and preserve also the natural moisture content inside them. We have different examples of occlusives. The first type is mineral-derived occlusives, like paraffin or petroleum jelly. Petroleum jelly is called Vaseline. There is another type of mineral-derived compounds or mineral-derived occlusives that can be used as moisturizers. This type is called cetomacrogol. Cetomacrogol is very effective, is a very highly effective occlusive, but it's very sticky and greasy and it's not favored by people. يعني it doesn't increase the patient compliance, but they are very effective in very dry skin or people with skin medical problems. If you have very dry skin, cetomacrogol can be a solution for this dry skin. The second type or the second example of for occlusives are substances derived from animal fat. The first type is mineral-derived. The second type is animal fat derived, like lanolin and its derivatives, which are derived from sheep's wool. The third Example of occlusives are substances derived from vegetable oils, like olive oil, peanut, sesame seed oil, and other vegetable oils. If we want to compare between the three types, mineral-derived, animal-derived, and vegetable oils, we will find that the vegetable oils have the less occlusive properties than both animal or mineral-derived substances. But they can give us sufficient occlusion, but not on the same level like the animal or mineral oils. The fourth example for occlusives are substances derived from whales. These substances are called spermaceti. Spermaceti is type of occlusives derived from whales, and it's a very effective occlusive. We need to remember that occlusive products tend to be sticky and oily. They are oily in nature or lipid in nature, so they are sticky and oily. Being sticky and oily is not favored by consumers like ointments. Most of patients or consumers do not like applying ointments on their skin. Instead, the creams and lotions are more favored. Why? Because they have greater water content. So using less oily products is favored by patients. Therefore, products like ointments or like oily substances are generally combined as creams or lotions. You can prepare a cream that includes or that contains oils inside it, and lotions which contains also oils or fatty substances, but they have greater water content than a pure oily product. So they are favored by patients, and this increases the patient compliance. Moisturizers that contain relatively large amounts of water, like emulsions, creams, and lotions, should not be applied directly or just before the exposure to cold weather. Why? Because when you apply the cream or the emulsion, which contains large water content, and when the skin is exposed to the cold weather, water evaporates from the skin's surface. This evaporation causes cooling effect on the skin. This cooling effect can harm facial skin, causing other problems. So do not use moisturizers containing high water content, as we said before, like creams and lotions and emulsions, directly or just before being exposed to a cold weather, because this can harm your skin, especially the facial skin. So what's the solution? The first solution that you can apply or use the moisturizer 20 or 30 minutes before being exposed to the cold, dry weather. The second solution that you can use oily moisturizers instead of these aqueous moisturizers. كده احنا خلصنا المحاضرة التانية. المحاضرة التالتة إن شاء الله نكمل بقية أنواع الكريمز. شكراً.